When personal pain takes your name and your dreams lie dead in the dust, when everything you work for is gone, there's no one left you can trust. You need a place, you need a space to get away from your past, a place to share, someone to care, to learn to love at last. So come on in, find a friend to help you on your way. Pull up a chair, find his care. We'll be here every day in his place, his place.
Everything that I have read about the Crusades, everything I've been told, everything that I learned from church history about the Crusades is that this is a good thing. I mean, the Pope sanctioned them, said, you know, listen, this is a good thing. Let's go head on, boom. Let's get them. And you see the royal knights, you know, in shining armor going down for the quest to set free Jerusalem. And now you're telling me, Lynn, that this wasn't a good idea?
That's what I'm telling you. Yeah. The Pope actually did call them, but what he did was he turned the meaning of the cross upside down. Now, instead of it being a means of redemption, it became a means of destruction. Turned the cross into a sword. It's a terrible thing. Misrepresented Christ probably more to Muslims and Jews than anything that's ever been done.
But I mean, Jerusalem got set free by the Crusade.
Set free? Well,
I mean, that's what I've been taught through history. I mean, this was a great momentous time.
Interesting, before the Crusaders came, Tim, there were Christians, Jews, and Muslims living under Muslim rule in peace in Jerusalem. Now, the Jews and Christians were second-class citizens, but everybody lived there in freedom.
What's happening, brother? How's it going, S.A.?
I'm doing all right, buddy. How are you? What's happening?
Everything be all right, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, what's happening? I wish I knew.
You don't know?
I wish I thought you'd tell me.
Actually, you know, after the conversation we had last time you were in here, you know, I was talking to Chaz and Bill, you know, my brother, a couple other people about the stuff we were talking about. I don't know if I like what I'm hearing and seeing, especially in me. I'm surprised at some of the things I was saying. All right, there's the wall.
There it is.
That's Kareem Abdul-Quraysh shooting the wall like only he can. This is a real wall, too, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you. Welcome to Feedback, by the way. We're doing lots of email.
Email.
We're getting that email, Frank. What's that email address? It's his place?
At
CTV.org. You got it, brother. You're on the mic. Hello, my name is Melissa. Melissa says that she's having some hard times. Can you please pray for me? We have a board in the His Place office that we write on dry marker, especially for our viewers or people that call or write or email us with prayer requests. So, Melissa, we will pray for you. And she says, one more thing, can you have the baby on the air more? She wants to see more of Owen. If you have something you'd like to do, please call, write, or email us with your suggestions or comments today. Give us a dash, Frank.
It's a dash.
With authority.
It's a dash.
30 minutes of Cornerstone Television's Christ-centered programming and ministry outreaches can change lives for eternity.
At His Place, one of 11 original programs produced by Cornerstone Television, we're reaching out to the lost and hurting through a unique blend of drama and cutting-edge interviews.
I was at a really bad time in my life. I was going through a divorce. I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't going to church. I had a small child. And I was pretty lonely at the time. I started flipping through the channels on the TV, and His Place on Cornerstone Television caught my eye. And pretty soon I was watching every night, and it changed my life. It brought me to God. Cornerstone Television was there for me anytime when I was lonely. I just put it on, and it was because of Cornerstone Television that I came to God.
Help change lives for eternity by sending your life-changer gift of $25 a month to Cornerstone Television, Wall, Pennsylvania, 15148-1499.
Well, the whole idea, from what I can remember, is that there were these pagans holding Jerusalem, and you're telling me now that Jerusalem was pretty much a free city, that anybody could come and go as they pleased, because the Muslims looked at it as a holy city and anybody could come.
Well, you know, we always have a tendency to demonize our enemies, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
And the picture that we have of Muslims then and now is very demonized. Yeah, actually, the sophistication, the education, the civilization of Muslims at that time was, by our standards, I think, superior to what was happening in Europe, which called itself Christian. But the brand of Christianity, you know, we would hardly recognize it. It was just occult. There was no place for Christ, a cross.
Was it kind of like now, for example, when I've traveled overseas and I've talked to Muslims, if a Rocky movie comes over, that's a Christian movie.
Yeah, that's right.
If you know, Beavis and Butthead comes over, that's a Christian movie,
yeah,
because it came from Western civilization.
Yeah.
I mean,
Michael Jackson's Christian, Madonna Christian. Yeah.
So I mean, was
Christian.
that pretty much the European sort of? I mean, some of them were real Christians, but for the most part, people had no sense of what.
My understanding, having researched it pretty carefully and had researchers go through things and write books just for this, is that real Christianity was very rare indeed. And really, actually, the first time that the concept of jihad, holy war, that we're now aware of coming from Islam, was ever espoused was by the Pope Urban II. And really, he called the first holy war when he sent the Crusaders down to Jerusalem, because for the first time ever, whereas Christians had always been taught that killing was wrong, even in warfare, he said, if you go and you give your life to kill infidels, Muslims, you go straight to heaven.
Well, that's now what I've heard from all these radical Islamic fundamentalists, is that, listen, to die in a holy war, man, that's automatic heaven. I mean, but you sin once, you spend 10,000 years in hell, but you die in a holy war, man, you make it to heaven.
Well, it's a classic case of you reap what you sow, isn't it? You know, we sowed that out of, well, our forefathers, European forefathers, sowed that into the Middle East, and we're reaping it back today.
Okay, so out of this, you researched this. How did you come to have this on your heart, to say, you know, this isn't something that you just walking around one day and say, oh man, the Crusades were lousy. Boy, I should do something about that.
Well, I suppose when I first started thinking seriously about it was, it was quite a long time ago. I won't tell you how many years, a long time. But when I first started working amongst Muslims and having any contact with Muslims, I grew up in Colorado, so I had none. But when I went to Europe and then traveled on a day, I started meeting Muslims, and I found that so often, especially the Turks and the Arabs, would say, what about the Crusades? Wow. What about the Crusades? War is 900 years old, and a big deal. So that started sort of ticking away in the back of my head. And then years later, in 1989 or 90, somebody wrote to me and said, have you ever considered doing a prayer walk down the routes of the Crusades? And I thought, no. No, we haven't, and I'm not really that interested. And I shelved it, really. Didn't even think about it. And then just, I guess, about 6 months later, out of the blue, I just felt God spoke to me. And that doesn't happen very often in my life. But I just felt like God said, Len, this has got to be done. This is my idea, not just a good idea. So I started researching and working, finding out more about it.
I mean, okay, so this is a reconciliation walk, but and God told you, but I mean, is there some sort of biblical precedent? I mean, there's lots of people. I mean, I've heard axe murderers say, "God told me." You know,
I use the term advisedly. You know, that's a phrase that trips off the tongue too lightly, doesn't it? Now, I think there is biblical precedent. I think it's very clear scripturally that history warps the present. You know. What we've sown in the past comes back to haunt us in the present. And there are a number of examples. You think of some examples in the Old Testament, like with Israel having a drought under the rule of David. It was a 3-year serious drought, and he inquired of the Lord, and God said it's because you've broken covenant. Saul broke covenant with the Gibeonites.
Saul broke covenant, and David was paying for it.
And the covenant was 13 generations old. It's unbelievable. Yeah, and David was paying for it. So, you know, he went to the Gibeonites, the remnant of them, and said, what do we have to do? And they had to do some pretty grisly repentance and restitution. Well, Jesus has done the restitution for us now. But we still need to go, I think, when we feel a sense of corporate responsibility for something in the past, we need to go and say, we're sorry. I don't see any other way of putting We're trying to put the
Anybody
past
need coffee
behind
here,
us.
gentlemen?
You guys need a refill?
Yeah,
A
sure.
little bit on top.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Ain't no problem. Anybody with that electric blue shirt on is a friend of mine.
Yeah, nice.
Better watch out, Tim might start disco dancing.
English special.
You need to probably talk to Lynn at some point. Oh, I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay, great. If you need anything else, let me know.
So,
Okay.
So I'll tell you what, man. Good thing we're not too busy tonight. The wife stayed home because the baby threw up a couple times this afternoon. I don't know, he was doing... Yesterday, he threw a ball to me for the first time. You know, we've rolled the ball back and forth quite a few times, but yesterday, for the first time, picked that ball up and threw it to me across the room. He's got an arm, man, but he's coming down with something.
I've been trying to teach my puppy to do that.
It's just not working.
With my puppy, I think I got a baby a lot of times. He goes to get the ball, he won't throw it back.
Won't throw it back. You got to work with him. I'll bring Owen over. Maybe they can work together. I don't know. But see, the thing I was saying about, talking to these guys, and I'm thinking to myself, and I don't know, anytime people come in here, and there's people in here all the time, and I eavesdrop on the conversations kind of when I'm waiting on the tables, and they're talking about racism and prejudice and stuff, and it reminds me of that story in the Bible about the guy that went into the temple and said, Lord, thank you that I'm not like those terrible sinners out there, because I always think, Lord, thank you that I'm not a racist and I'm not prejudiced. And then, after we talked, I caught myself, I'm thinking more about it, and there's been times, if I'm downtown, Pittsburgh, middle, 11 o'clock, midnight, I'm walking down the street. If I see a couple black guys coming around the corner, I found that I get a lot more nervous, a lot more scared, and start thinking, this must be a gang, or what are they going to do to me, as opposed to...
Yeah, if you pull up to a red light and you're in your car, you lock the doors when you see black people.
Yeah, if I'm driving through a neighborhood that's a rough neighborhood or something, I'm locking my windows. If there's a black person pulls up next to me in the car, I'll look away the other look. I don't like that stuff, that I'm finding in myself. And do you ever feel that way when you're going through a, situation?
Well, I mean, you don't like, what did you find in yourself?
I don't like the fact that why should I
label it? I mean, what do you...
Well, why would I be more afraid of...
You think you're a racist?
I hope not.
I think you're discriminating, And I think you're going through some fears, under these circumstances. And that type of thing does happen to me. Route 51 here, when I drive down, as you know, Johnny Gamage, the black businessman, motorist, pulled over on a routine traffic stop, murdered, some people say by 5 policemen. When I myself, and I know a lot of other blacks who drive down Route 51 through Brentwood, see a police car anywhere nearby, you got a choice. You can step on the gas and go like mad till you get to a police station in the next municipality. Or, I think this is what's important, because we're not given the spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind, right?
Right.
Or we do the courageous thing and maybe say hello to that black person on the street, or maybe I pull over and I say, yes, officer, when I'm driving through Brentwood. Somebody said that courage isn't the absence of fear, but making the right choice inside of a fearful situation, And I think that's what taking faith is about, I try to do it sometimes.
I guess I don't realize, because grew up, in a white neighborhood and went to schools that were, 95% white, and, work here, and this is, pretty much a white neighborhood, although we get mixed clientele coming into the diner and stuff.
Is that right? Since when? Since I walked in. Well, I've noticed a smattering of people of color here now and then, as a matter of fact.
And that's the thing. So when you're isolated, how do you... it's like if I went to Mexico or something, when I went to Mexico, it would be like being in a new culture, and I'm suddenly dealing with people that I'm not used to interacting with on a daily basis. So how do you stay open and fresh and flexible and not get...
I don't know about Mexico because I don't speak Spanish. I'd be utterly lost. Here, I know, I try to make it an effort to look through the lenses of Christ as in contrast to the lenses of my experience.
These beautiful boys and girls are smiling for a reason. Even though they live in the impoverished slums of Mexico City, they have hope. They get a free meal, medical care, and the glorious gospel. They have Christian Advance International Hand of Love sponsors who pray for them and help them have a better life. These children do not have Hand of Love sponsors yet. They need someone like you to sponsor them, to give $20 a month, to pray for them on a daily basis. They need someone like you to care for them, so that they too can have a reason to smile. If you're interested in helping bring happiness to an impoverished boy or girl in Mexico City, Call us today at 1-800-562-4970. You can help us help them. Call today.
The other day, I was driving down the road when someone came up right on my tail trying to push me even faster. Well, what do you think I did? Well, I began going faster. It wasn't long before I realized I'd exceeded way beyond a safe speed limit. And that's when the thought occurred to me, who's driving this car anyhow? See, life can be just like that. Often our lives are pushed out of control, and it's time to ask who or what is driving my life anyhow? Is it the pressures of the job, family, or success? See, Jesus made it clear that our lives should be a success, but our success should be measured by our peace. If we put God first, He promises to take care of the rest. God knows you. He knows what'll make you happy, and perhaps it's time that you got to know Him. Well, I'd like to help you do that. Let me send you a book called Jesus Christ, The Story of His Life. You can call 412-824-1221 today. Leave your name and address, and I'll send you Jesus Christ, The Story of His Life. Call today, 412-824-1221.
That God speaks to you, you understand the biblical precedent for the reconciliation walk, and so you decide, okay, I'm going to show up in Cologne, Germany, and do what? I mean, you just gonna, okay, let's get a band together, let's put on praise music and walk around. No, I mean, what?
It really took a long time of researching, thinking, praying, getting other people to pray, seek counsel, and we developed a message of apology. Actually, we developed it in Turkish and then translated it back into English and other languages, which we felt was suitable to be able to reach a Turk's heart. And as a Christian, say, we're sorry. So, yeah, we showed up in Cologne last Easter because that was 900 years from the time the Crusade started.
From Cologne.
They started from Cologne. It was kind of a spiritual capital for Northern Europe, and they gathered there because that's where this.
Is that where Peter the Hermit?
Peter the Hermit.
Whole
Yeah,
story.
he was the magnet.
The rabble that came down out of the mountain.
Yeah, all
smelled
these
bad. And
peasants and families gathered in, and they took off from Cologne. So we had we gathered about 300 or 400 people there, and 125 people started the walk on last Easter Sunday, and it was a really interesting experience, because I wasn't sure how people would receive the message, but there is a Turkish mosque, a good-sized one, right there in Cologne, because there's so many Turks living in Germany. And we went to that Turkish mosque with a message on Easter Sunday, very nervously, wondering what this imam, and he had a couple hundred of his men and boys there, what would they say, how would they respond? And he was younger than I thought, pretty warm, handed me a microphone, I explained who we were, and then we read the message. And it really seemed like the Holy Spirit just anointed it. God was in it.
I mean, what happened? How did these Muslims respond to this Christian guy who didn't have anything to do with the Crusades, but maybe his ancestors did somewhere on back? You standing up saying, "Listen, 900 years ago, I'm sorry." Yeah.
Well, the amazing thing is no Muslim has ever questioned whether or not we ought to be or have the right to say sorry. They always just accept our apology. But I thought they might use it by saying, yeah, so now you recognize we were right all along. We have a right to the whole of the Middle East and Turkey. None of that either. By coming in the spirit of humility, it's like it makes the way for them to respond in a humble spirit. That's really foundational to the gospel, and we don't do that enough, So when I delivered the message to this imam, he stood up and said, when I first read this message, because we'd sent it to him the day before, I was astonished, he said. I was filled with hope. And I thought, whoever had this message, he said, must have had a visit from God. This has got to be from God. And then he went on to wish us blessings and great success in our project, and told 600 other mosques. He sent our message out to 600 other mosques around Europe. So it made a huge impact. That was Cologne.
The thought that comes to mind, I mean, it somewhat applies. Jesus said, when you come to drop your gift off at the altar and you realize that your brother has aught against you, go to him and ask forgiveness. And I know that there's got to be people, Lynn, and I know you're doing a great and marvelous thing, but there's got to be people that say, cut me a break. You know, what, you know, why do I need to try to reconcile? Why do I need to say I'm sorry? I mean, these are murderers, these are baby killers, these are you know, they just want to they want to rape and pillage all of America, and what do you say to them?
Well, you know, the biggest impression on the people who've gone on this walk thus far is their whole view of Muslims has changed. We are being fed a very warped line. Yeah, there are some terrorists out there. There are some bad guys. And there's some bad guys who call themselves Christians too.
We also have Christians that try to blow up abortion clinics.
Yeah, exactly. And what you have there is people. You know, it's probably demonstrated by the way the Turks responded to us. Once we had spoken to them and they realized we were sincere, they would say, "Do you all think that we are all barbarians?" You know, they feel that we have this propagandistic view of them, and by coming in humility, they let their guards down, and friendships develop, and ancient barriers that keep us from being able to say who we really are and what we really believe drop away. It's fantastic what happened.
Is a conscribing to a belief that one race is inferior or superior to another, or it's a belief in racial purity. Okay? That all falls under like a scapegoatic prejudice, you know.
Which is? Use these big words.
I'm broke. My wife's walked out. I don't have a good job. I think I'm never going anywhere with my life, and it's all the fault of white people, or it's all the fault of black people, or if it wasn't for those doggone Japanese or Chinese. That's scapegoatic prejudice. The other kind, of course, is conforming prejudice. Say if I'm nice with you and we have great conversations when it's just you and I, but you see me with a bunch of my black friends and then I hardly speak to you, or vice versa. You know, that's conforming prejudice, and that's a lot of cowardice, you know. And neither one are Christ-like, of course, you know.
Yeah.
I doubt that there's any such thing as a Christian racist any more than a Christian thief or a Christian murderer, you know. I think that, you know, I'd much rather stand before God with a pipe full of crack in one hand and a bottle of Jack Daniels in this hand than to stand before Christ and tell him I'm a Christian racist, you know.
I don't want to stand before either of those if it was up to me. But that's even back, you know, something that, you know, I haven't often thought about was all the race, because, you know, you talk about, well, Jesus, people always say Jesus walked the earth and therefore he knows everything that we could ever possibly go through. He's endured it or understands it. And I'm just thinking as we're talking, he understood that too with Samaritans, you know, how pure Jewish people of pure Jewish descent hated Samaritans in Bible times, and the Samaritans hated the Jews, and they kept separate, had their own places.
But he hung out with the lady at the well. Samaritan woman.
And see, but that's what it's all about, is getting from, you know, how do you develop, like what you were talking about with that. You didn't finish that.
Right, yeah, and it happened with Jesus, and the only way it's going to happen, and the only way it's going to work out in terms of color inside of the churches with Jesus. At the Tower of Babel, man began speaking in all different languages, went into different parts of the world, developed different features and looked somewhat differently, you know. But at Christ at the cross, we're one nation, one brotherhood, one family, want to see another world, you know. And when we love each other, I think we begin to usher that in. You know, what really drives me nuts is the fact that if you peek inside a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall, these places are integrated. I mean, if you're in an area where, like, there are numerous black people and white people, and there's a Kingdom Hall, it's entirely integrated, and you cannot say that thing with regard to the Christian church today.
And that's because?
It's because sin's abounding and we need grace to abound all the more.
When's the last time you heard a sermon about racism? I mean, you hear about the reconciliation meetings and services, but how often do you hear somebody get up in the pulpit and say?
Pretty often. Find somebody in the congregation and of another race or color and shake their hands or hug them. Well, fine people do that, and I think they tend to go their own separate ways because we're afraid to rise above our fears, above our ignorance of each other. You're not a racist, Jeff. You discriminate in the same ways I tend to at times, and it's because we all look at the world, I think, through the lenses of our experience. The fact that white kids beat me up on my way home from school in a predominantly black or white neighborhood.
You
growing
gather all
up
these people, and you're
was,
asking people from all over the world to come and to walk this reconciliation walk from Cologne, Germany, all the way to Jerusalem, and you're doing this over, what, a 4-year period, 3-year period?
Up until 99, yeah.
And they're passing out these apologies, and what are you expecting to happen? I mean, are you expecting all the Muslims to come and say, well, this is great, this is wonderful, let's be friends? Or what do you...
Well, I know that sounds pretty naive, but so far that's exactly what's been happening.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I've told you about how it started off in Cologne. Well, it just continued that way. I thought, well, we won't get another response as warm as this, but we had the same response everywhere we went. And when we got into Turkey, they turned out in the towns and villages and clapped us through. We were on every television station, every newspaper, front page news, that the Christians had come and were apologizing. Because it's really alive for them, you know, this business of the Crusades. So I don't know that will continue. I just don't know. I know we're meant to do this. I know that it is somehow diffusing bitterness. It's creating a warm response back from Muslims. I think, yeah, a lot of people are going to become friends. A lot of Christians are going to find Muslim friends and vice versa. And we're going to enjoy their wonderful hospitality and friendship and their great food. And it'll be wonderful. But I'm not sure what all is going to happen historically, you know, as time goes on as a result of this.
I mean, do you have a sense of destiny with this? Like this is part of Christ's imminent return, that you do this, or what?
Well, you know, when I started this off, I started thinking, do I have delusions of grandeur? Is this really going to make any significant difference at all? And as it's gone on, I think, no, these aren't delusions. Something very important is happening here. And I don't know where God is going to take it. I just know that it's an important step along the way somewhere. I don't think it's part of any special end times prophetic significance, but I think God's using it. It's part of his plan.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. You're doing this, you'll finish up in Jerusalem in 1999.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're going through Lebanon, war-torn Lebanon?
Yeah, going through Lebanon, going through Syria.
I have a friend of mine who's the head of the Lebanese.
Hello, diner patrons. How are y'all doing? You know, if you're on the East Coast like we are enjoying some fantastic weather, aren't we, Whitney?
Oh, yeah.
It's gorgeous out there. You know, we always wish happy birthday to everybody that's, you know, of our family here at His Place. Well, it's the His Place birthday. That's right. We've just celebrated 8 years of broadcasting excellence with the His Place program, going into our 9th year. Stay tuned. Should be good. If you want to send a birthday card, feel free. Tune in tomorrow. Later.